Yeah, yeah. Welcome to the show. Let's get it on. Correct me if I'm wrong. Coming in strong. Yeah. We're diving deep. Got a lot to discuss. Religion to sports. Come join the fuss. Current events, we keep it real. Breaking news, that's how we feel. Open minds, we gather around. Voices in the air, hear that sound. From the streets to the airwaves, we unite. Bringing all the topics to the spotlight. You're right if I'm wrong. We're setting the tone. Podcast vibes, yeah, you're never alone. From the trucking world to the news of the day. Join the combo. Come on, let's play.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to talk about. A lot's been going on in the trucking world this week. A lot of changes, a lot of news stories. I found a couple of stories that I thought you guys would be pretty interested in, dealing with us truck drivers. We're going to look at that. We got a situation where a truck driver was accused or charged with kidnapping his girlfriend, running over an officer. Uh, we got another story talks about 3,000, 280 pounds of marijuana and 260 pounds of cocaine was seized from a CMV following a traffic stop that happened on I-80. I-70. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about a Kentucky truck company owner that was sentenced to 28 years for trafficking cocaine in a modified vehicle batteries. And then we're going to top it off. We're going to talk about factoring. I had a lot of people request that I continue talking about factoring or make it more explanatory, go in depth with it. So that's what I plan to do in this series. But first, let's look at some of our news stories, okay, that's going on today. First of all, let's talk about this truck driver that's seeking a new attorney ahead of a death penalty trial for kidnapping and running over an officer. I thought this was pretty weird. This story here has a lot of moving parts. There's more to it, has to be, with this gentleman's mental state, and or something was altering his state of mind. I don't know, be it drugs, be it alcohol, I don't know. But let's dig right into the story. It says a truck driver is seeking a new attorney ahead of his June trial after a 2024 incident where he fatally struck a police officer. Okay. So 43-year-old Michael Aaron Jane made a virtual court appearance on Wednesday, June the 4th, to voice concerns about his representation in his case. So he's got an issue with his lawyer. So during the May 2024 incident, Jane reportedly experienced a paranoid episode. And so in this paranoid episode, he held his girlfriend hostage against her will. He ran over a police officer, fled police on foot, and stole another vehicle. And it said at one point he also called the police on himself. So like I said, this story has a lot of moving parts, and it shows all the signs of someone that is just damn right out of their mind. I don't know what else to say about that. But anyway, according to the Daily Herald, 4th District Judge Thomas Lowe granted Jane's request for a virtual hearing, but did not officially grant permission for a new attorney to be added to his team. It says Rudy Batista, another attorney working with Jane, confirmed that there has been some breakdown in communication between Jane and the attorney. So that might be over strategy. That might be over a disagreement in the events that happened, or the lawyer not buying his story. It could be a number of things involved in that. He said, I'm reluctant to speak with the prosecution and them listening to what I have to say about concerns of my defense, Your Honor. My life is at stake. I'm fighting for my life, and I do have some serious concerns about my defense. That's what he voiced to the judge during his virtual hearing. So another hearing date has been scheduled for June the 11th. And what the judge is hoping that the two sides can work out their differences and proceed on with the trial without the appointment of a new attorney, which of course will delay situations and delay matters. So I thought that was an interesting story. Like I said, this truck driver kidnapped his girlfriend, ran over a police officer, tried to evade police on foot, and then called the police himself. So that I thought was a very interesting story, guys. We have another story that I thought was pretty interesting as well. Let's take a look at this story real quick. Guys, all right. How can this be? 3,280 pounds of marijuana, 260 pounds of coke seized from a CMV following a traffic stop on I-70 in Kansas. See, when the police stop you, this is what they're curious about. This is what they're looking for. Aside from those who are wanted by the law for whatever reasons, for warrants, they're interested in that. But they're also interested in the possibility of you carrying drugs. That's comes with their training. They're taught this type of mentality. So I don't know what gets into some people's minds when they think they can get away with this. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but it's a big ass risk. Anyway, this story says two people were arrested after a traffic stop on a commercial vehicle in Kansas uncovered thousands of pounds of drugs. I'm interested to know the street value. I'm quite sure it will tell us. On June the 1st and 2nd, 2025, multiple law enforcement agencies partnered for a criminal enforcement effort along the I-70 corridor through Geary County, Kansas, with the goal of locating, identifying, and apprehending major criminals using I-70 as a traffic corridor. I know in my hometown, if you will go through Cordele, jump on 75, continue on until you get to Perry, Georgia, and right past Perry, Georgia, you will see that there is a little traffic enforcement group, and that's basically what they're looking for. They're looking for the transport of drugs from Georgia to Florida. That's what they're looking for. So if you have a suspicious vehicle, it doesn't even have to be suspicious. It could just be a vehicle that stands out. Rental cars stand out to them. So when they get behind you and run the tag, they're, getting as much information as their system will allow them to have to know whether or not you are a potential threat or if something seems out of the ordinary. Okay. But on the evening of June the 2nd, officers with the Geary County Sheriff's Office conducted a traffic stop on a semi truck on mile marker 302 on I-70 for traffic infractions. After observing indicators of further criminal activity, and we don't know what those indicators are, a canine unit was deployed and then a probable cause search warrant was conducted, or a probable cause search, was conducted. Officers found approximately 3,280 pounds of marijuana and 260 pounds of cocaine concealed within the trailer. I'm curious to know where that was. Uh, how ingenious did they get as far as where they put it at in the trailer. So it says the estimated street value of the seized drugs is approximately, take a guess. We got 3,280 pounds of marijuana, 260 pounds of coke. What do you think the street value of that is? Man, 4 million. So police arrested, I can't even say this nigga's name, Giannis Tezgay, 33 of California, and Samson Halib, 31, also of California, following the traffic stop. Both suspects are being held on a $500,000 bond each. So the DEA responded to assist with the investigation. I guess if it's uh, over a certain amount and things like that, the DEA gets involved. That's when the alphabet boys start getting involved. When you get into the big leagues, the FBI, uh, ATF, DEA. It says this operation is a powerful example of what law enforcement can accomplish. No, this operation is a prime example of a stupid nigga, a pair of stupid niggas thinking that they can do what they can't do. So this operation is a powerful example of what law enforcement can accomplish when we work together across jurisdictional lines. And the commitment and coordination of all agencies involved was a key to this success. Uh, and see, they get a thrill out of stuff like this, man. Law enforcement gets an absolute bang out of stuff like this. I mean, this makes their career, especially a bust like this. It would definitely make their career. But I thought this was interesting. I didn't know how I thought it was one person. I didn't know it was a pair of dummies, how you could be this stupid. But I guess, that's the world we live in. Find very interesting. Kentucky trucking company owner sentenced to 28 years for trafficking cocaine and modified vehicle batteries. And see, the reason this stuff gets kind of interesting to me is because a crook is always thinking of a way to do crookish things. Uh, so they're always improvising, they're always modifying, they're always adapting, they're innovators. So a Kentucky trucking company owner sentenced to 28 years for trafficking cocaine and modified vehicle batteries. Let's see what this dummy was thinking about. On June the 2nd, 2025, Lexington resident Alexandro Galvin, and now I'm curious, Gomez, 51, was sentenced to 28 years in prison on charges of conspiracy to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine, possession with intent to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine, and conspiracy to launder drug proceeds, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Kentucky. Gomez owned Lexington-based trucking company G&G Transportation. Okay. So, according to a plea agreement between November 2023 and September 2024, conspired with others to use his trucking company to travel to McAllen, Texas to pick up loads of drugs. Gomez made the trips at least twice per month, officials say. So I wonder how many he got away with. As part of the drug trafficking scheme, Gomez used large vehicle batteries that were hollowed out to allow for 4 kilograms of cocaine. I don't even have a clue of what 4 kilograms of cocaine looks like or how much that is. I am a square. To evade detection by law enforcement, the batteries contained a small battery within the modified battery. Okay, I got it. To evade detection by law enforcement, he had a battery inside a battery so that the battery would still produce a charge. Well, I be damn. Now that's genius. So the batteries, if somebody wanted to test the batteries, they would still produce a charge. They would think it was still a battery. So Gomez would receive at least 2 batteries per trip to McAllen, and sometimes as many as 10 batteries. Once he obtained the drugs, he would then distribute them to others around the county, or around the country, I'm sorry, including in Dallas, Texas, Columbia, South Carolina, Dayton, Ohio. Now, that's my hometown. Stay out of there. In Cincinnati, Ohio. The U.S. Attorney's Office said, man, they got him for trafficking something big time, man. All those state lines he's crossing. Gomez is also accused of concealing his profits from the operation by making large cash deposits in both his personal and business accounts, and then using the cash deposits to pay for G&G Transportation's expenses, including maintenance and fuel for the Volvo semi-truck that was used to pick up the drug loads, and for his personal expenses, including mortgage payments. Man, I'm wondering, does that allow them to confiscate all those things? His trucks, of course, because it was used in the commission of a crime. And if I think his CDL, regardless, well, he's got a 28-year sentence. He don't have a need for a CDL now. But I think if you're using your a commercial vehicle like that in the commission of a felony, I don't know if that takes your CDL for life. Uh, I don't know. So it says between September 2023 and May 31st, 2024, Gomez deposited $159,350 in cash in the G&G operating account, $105,000, $745.95 into his personal account. The case was investigated by the DEA, HSI, FBI, Frankfurt Police Department, Lexington Police Department, Nicholsonville Police Department, and the Jessamine County Sheriff's Office. Man, this dude, Lord have mercy. God be with you, brother. I don't know what to say about that. Literally, I don't know what some people be thinking sometime, man, how they think they can pull this kind of stuff off in plain sight, you know. But sometimes it works. And as you can see, sometimes it doesn't work. So it's not worth the risk, especially when you can make good money trucking. I mean, he could make $30,000-$40,000 a month with one truck. Well, I'd say $20,000 to $30,000 is more reasonable, but he definitely can make $20,000 a month with one truck. You need more money, go get you another truck. Get your driver, put it in that truck. You know, there's legitimate ways to make money, guys. All right. All right. Factoring companies do. Okay. So I'm going to put up some information to try to tell you a little bit about factoring. Okay. So let's try to get some insight on the pros and the cons of factoring, because there are a lot of pros, some con there are some pros, a lot of cons to factoring, and sometimes it can become predatory, just depending on the factoring company. Okay, so let's take a look at this. All right, the pros and cons of a factoring company. Now, some of the pros of factoring is that it gives you immediate cash flow. Okay, that's one of the pros of factoring. So, what is factoring? Let's start off. What is factoring, guys? Okay, a lot of people want to know what factoring is. So let me back up and explain to you exactly what factoring is. Okay, factoring is number one. Some of the pros. Okay, no new debt. So factoring, when you factor with a particular factoring company, now anybody can't factor. A dispatcher can't factor. That's illegal. Okay, they do not have the authorization by the government to do money transactions like that. So if you have a dispatcher and they're fronting you the money and you got to pay them back later and you have to pay them a little interest or whatever, you guys are conducting illegal transactions right there. I just want you to know that. So, number two, it's no new debt. Factoring is not a loan. So, you're selling an asset, which is your invoice. That invoice is your asset because that's what you are waiting to get paid for. You have done the work. That invoice is proof that you've done the work. So, that's what you're paid for. It's just like writing a post dated check, or it's just like back in the days. I don't even know if it's prevalent now, but back in the days, they used to have check cashing joints. And if you needed money until your next payday, okay, you would post date a check, write it to this company. They would give you cash for it. You may write the check for $200. You got to turn around and give them $300 or $400. It's crazy. Sometimes that stuff is a 300% markup. So it was crazy. How that can go. And this factoring can get out of hand as well. So factoring is not a loan. You're selling your asset, which is your invoice, so that it doesn't increase your liabilities or hurt your credit. Okay. Another pro is that it's easy to get approved for factoring. Approval is usually based on your customer's credibility and credit worthiness, not yours. So Your approval is not based on your credit record. It's not based on you as a person. It's based on the shipper or the broker that you are actually doing business with, right? They have a credit rating, they have a ranking. And so your ability to get approved or your ability to get money for these or sell, basically you're selling your invoices. So your ability to sell that particular invoice to your factoring company depends on the shipper or the broker that you're dealing with. Okay. Some factoring companies handle collections and billing, which saves you time and effort. So if you got a broker that won't pay, or a broker that's a slow pay, a shipper that won't pay you, well, sometimes if you have a factoring company, they do all that anyway. Okay. Now let's talk. Now those are some of the pros: immediate cash flow, no new debt, easy approval. It's not a loan out. Well, it's easily approved than a loan would be, and it's outsourced collection, so to speak. It alleviates you a lot of times of having to deal with brokers and shippers and collecting money from them, and things of that nature. And it's growth friendly. So the more invoices, more funding. Uh, so it can be advantageous to your business in that perspective. So let's talk about the cons of using a factoring company. All right, what's the damn catch? Cost. Okay, factoring companies fees range from 1% to 5% or more per invoice, depending on the contract. And over time, this can be kind of expensive, okay? Over time. So one invoice, it may not seem like much. Two invoices, it might not seem like much. It starts to add up like on a monthly basis, okay? Especially if you're doing around $20,000 in volume a month, $30,000 in volume a month, and you have a factoring company that's charging you 3%, 4%, or even 5%, which is extremely high. Most of them try to stay 2%, anywhere from 2 to 3% to stay competitive, like Taft. And Sumner and other companies, they try to stay like 2.2% or 2.3 in order to stay competitive. Okay. Now, number two, it's a big one. You lose control over customer interaction. Okay. If the factoring company collects money on your behalf, it may impact your relationship with that shipper or with that broker, because now you have a middleman that's coming in and playing sort of like a major role. They're controlling the finances, so to speak. If whoever controls the money controls the game, right? They control, they have the power. Uh, so, you're literally giving a factoring company, when you sign up with them, control of your company, control of the financial lifeline of your company. Long-term contracts or minimums. Okay, some factoring companies require long term contracts or long term commitments, minimum value, or charge penalties for early termination. I know most of them charge penalties for early termination. Most of them will require at least a year's contract that is not breakable. If you do, there will be a penalty involved in breaking out. And usually those are significant penalties, okay? And they have minimum volume that they need you to do. Now, a lot of these factoring companies, guys, what they will do, they will offer you a lot of perks. They will offer you fuel cards, they will offer you load boards, they will offer you tire discounts, and all they doing is getting with these dispatchers, uh, having agreements with them. You still got to pay the dispatcher 10%, 13%. Some of them charge 15%. By the way, Elic Logistics charges 5%, just so you know. It's all about the driver with Elic Logistics. But some of these factoring companies, they'll exaggerate all of their services to you to try to sell those services to you. Oh, we have dispatchers, we have load boards. You won't have to worry about loads. Of course, they don't want you worried about freight. They need you moving, because as long as you're moving, that's money they're making off your invoices, right? But the getting out of those long-term commitments is what is very, very difficult at times. Now, let's talk about what happens when you sign up with a factoring company. What the factoring company won't tell you, but it's in the it may not be specifically worded in the documentation like I'm telling you, but this is what happens, okay? If you sign up with a factoring company, they do what's called a UCC filing against your DOT number. Okay. What that number does, it basically tells the entire financial world, all brokers, all shippers, that that person's finances belong to me. That's what that factoring company is telling other shippers and other brokers, that all of his finances, when it comes to invoices, loads, any revenue derived from transporting loads under this company, all that revenue is mine. That's what they're saying. Okay. And you can't pick and choose which invoices you give to a factoring company. The only way you can side skirt that legally, not even legally, because it's still illegal. The only way you can side skirt that is if somebody pays you cash. And who does that? Unless it's a COD and it's like some farming equipment or something like that. But even they pay in a check. Uh, so, guys, you have to be very careful. So, they do what's called a UCC filing against your DOT number. Who can see this filing? Other brokers and shippers can see that all of your invoices need to go, all of your payments for your invoices need to go to this factoring company. So guess what they do? They send that payment to the factoring company. And what does the factoring company do? They go ahead and pay you within a short period of time. So they pay you now. The factoring company pays the truck driver now, and the factoring company waits to receive their money from the broker or the shipper. And in doing this, they charge you a fee. That's how they make their money. Okay. So you have to be very careful about that. The hardship in that, it sounds good so far, right? The hardship in that is once you do get up on your feet, once you have been in the game, and now you're able to support yourself in a way that you don't need it's not a finance company, but you don't need anyone to buy your invoices and charge you a fee. Now you're in a position where I want all my money. I want to get all of my money. Okay. Well, guess what? You can't. You have no recourse. You cannot until that contract is over. And here's what you have to watch out for if you're going to factor. And I'm not knocking it, because the majority of us can't afford to. You got to have at least 30 to 45,000 up front most of the time to be able to not factor. Okay. Every now and then you can find brokers that do, not every now and then, but you can find brokers that do quick pay. They're going to charge you a fee still. But a lot of the brokers are now trying to go to the quick pay options because they're learning that they can make money off of the quick pay options. So, but not all brokers do. And if you're dealing with direct shippers, now you really got an issue. So it's understandable that people have to factor, right? But these are the cons of factoring. Now, if you want to get out of that contract, if it's a year's contract, a lot of times you got to notify the factoring company 30 days. You have to give them 30 days notice, not a 31-day notice, not uh, a 29-day notice. You have to give them a 30-day written notice, okay? And if you fall anywhere outside the scope of that 30-day notice, guess what happens? That contract automatically renews itself, and you're locked into that factoring company for another year. And I'm telling you, there's no switches you can flip to get that off of you. The only thing I have personally seen trucking companies do is have to get a brand new DOT or MC number. And still, that's not easy, because unless you're using different names, it's still going to follow you. The FMCSA and the DOT, they're eventually going to connect the dots, and that MC number or that DOT number your old one will become attached to you again. So it's very difficult to get out from under factoring companies. I have heard horror stories of people turning in their notices and a factoring company not honoring the notices or saying they didn't receive it, and it renews for a year and all of their money is going to the factoring company. I've heard horror stories of factoring companies not paying drivers the way they're supposed to and on time. And so basically you're at the mercy of this company and their financial status and things like that and what they choose to do and not do. You got to remember, everybody in the world ain't straight, right? Everybody in the world ain't on the straight and narrow. So sometimes people are floating money. Sometimes some of these companies are getting cash strapped. And what they're doing, they're floating money around. So they're waiting on Peter to pay them so they can pay Paul. You see what I'm saying? So uh, you have to be very careful in choosing a factoring company. Last but not least, there is a once a month charge that a factoring company will charge you. And usually at the new cycle, which starts every month, the first billing invoice, they will charge you a small fee. Sometimes that fee is $50, sometimes it's $55. But that's a once a month charge that they don't tell you about, and it's in fine print. I remember one time I was going to factor with the factoring company, and I looked at the small print, and I didn't like that because I saw this charge. So I questioned the gentleman that was my representative. I said, "What is this?" I said, "Is this an all the time charge on each and every invoice?" He says, "No, no, no, no. That's a one time charge that we charge once a month, and it's charged on the first invoice that you send in." And I'm like, "What the hell is it for? And why am I paying you 2.3% plus this fee?" You see what I'm saying? And a lot of these factoring companies will give you fuel cards, but you've got to pump at least X amount of gallons in order to get that rate. So they'll give you 2% or they'll on your factoring rate. So that means whatever you factor in invoices, they're going to get 2%. As long as you pump 200 gallons of fuel a month, 1,000 gallons of fuel a month. It's whatever parameters that they set up. But there's always a catch to this stuff, and you need to ask questions. Don't get a factoring contract without reading every single word. You will live to regret it. It actually can be the death blow to your trucking company. So do not sign a factoring company without reading every inch of that contract. They'll want it back quickly. They'll send a DocuSign and they'll say it's time stamped. And you need to get it back to them in 15 minutes. And you need to get it back to them, that day. And they know damn well it's going to take you time to read those documents. It is not a one-page document. Sometimes it's 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages. Just depends on what's all, sliced up in there. So, my advice: if you don't have to factor, don't factor. If you do, choose your factoring companies wisely. Look up the reviews, go to the Better Business Bureau, look up the complaints. The particular company I was going to sign up with, I looked them up. I looked up their reviews and I saw all their reviews with the Better Business Bureau. Now, they're one of the largest factoring companies in the United States. So I expect them to have more negative than anyone else would have. Just like Swift Transportation, they used to have 26,000 units out there. So I expect them to have more issues, more traffic infractions and things like that than any other company. But this factoring company, damn, I didn't expect them to have over 300 infractions. And that's what they had. They had over 300 negative reviews, and they were one of the largest factoring companies in the country. So that's why I'm saying, on everything you do in this trucking industry, man, you got to do your research. You got to do research on your brokers. You got to do research on your shippers. You got to do credit checks on your brokers, man. There ain't no, it's don't be in that big of a hurry to not do. Your load board should be doing that. Your dispatcher should be protecting you that way. If you're ever in need of loads, if you ever need a good factoring company, you can always pick up the phone and call Elic Logistics, and I promise you they will take care of you. They believe in hospitality. First of all, they believe in the driver first. Second of all, they believe in hospitality. They are one of the only companies that teach hospitality. Okay. So they do that before they even start training their people how to dispatch. One thing they do, every driver they have must go through, every agent, dispatcher they have must go through hospitality training, and every agent they have must take the ELDT course. So they must know the same things in order to pass a CDL exam as a truck driver would know. And they have to successfully pass that exam. A truck driver has to pass it with 80%. And Elic Logistics agent has to pass it with a 95 in order to dispatch you. So this company is different, man. It's made of something different, okay? So be careful when you're factoring. Take all these things into consideration, guys. And I hope I was able to help you guys as far as giving you some information on factoring. And what I want you guys to do is have a good rest of your day, okay? Thanks.
Trucking industry, we're keeping it fresh. Latest up. Yeah. Welcome to the show. Let's get it on. Correct me if I'm wrong. Coming in strong. Yeah. We're diving deep. Got a lot to discuss. Religion to sports. Come join the fuss. Current events, we keep it real. Breaking news, that's how we feel. Open minds, we gather around. Voices in the air, hear that sound. From the streets to the airwaves, we unite. Bringing all the topics to the spotlight. You're right, me if I'm wrong. We're setting the tone. Podcast vibes, yeah, you're never alone. From the trucking world to the news of the day. Join the combo, come on, let's play. Trucking industry, we're keeping it fresh. Latest up.